Hello, and welcome to the Music Survival Guide, the independent musician's guide on how to survive in the music industry. My name is Phil, a mixing engineer. Hope you're doing wonderfully well out there. It is, of course, a new year, and I was going to say new year, new you. I'm going to resist the urge, even though I've just said it. It's a new year, so I wanted to kick it off with a really great interview, and I've got a doozy, wow, what a word, a doozy of an interview here for you with Joe Marsh, who is a producer and mixing engineer based here in the UK. We talked about all sorts of things in this chat, like how he's brought efficiency to his processes so he can focus on the creative tasks instead of the kind of practical manual tasks, how being a parent has helped his producing career so far, and of course, climbing trees. I'm just going to stop talking and say on with the interview. So today on the podcast, I am joined by Joe Marsh, who is a producer and mixer. Joe, how are you?
Great, good to chat to you, Phil. Nice to meet you at last. Followed you on Instagram for a long time, so it's great to talk in person.
Seeing you kind of peripherally, as it were, and then here we are. Wow. Whether you like it or not. So my first question for you, as always, is from an online random question generator. And my question for you this week is, what do you miss most about being a kid?
Everything. Do you know what? I loved being a kid. I had a great, I feel privileged because I had a really, really nice childhood. I loved the fact that you could kind of just play and have no real responsibilities, you know? You don't have to worry about doing the dishes. Well, when you're a certain age anyway, or getting up for work or this, that, or the other, you just could relax and have fun. And with a young daughter, I get to relive a bit of that. And I'm always the one who's out playing and playing silly games and stuff. So I'm reliving my childhood through my daughter, which is great. But yeah, playing and do you know what? I still get to do it from time to time, but climbing trees. When we were kids, we'd go out and we'd climb trees. We'd go find the biggest tree we could and just climb to the top just because we could. And yeah, I'm going to go with that, climbing trees, because you climb trees as an adult and people think you're a bit weird. But I still look at a tree and think, that's a good tree. I'd climb that. I don't know about you. What would you say?
I don't know. I mean, I was thinking about it when I got the question. I was just there like, you know, when I was young, I was so desperate to be all grown up and then be able to do what I like. And now I'm here. I'm like, actually, that was a pretty good deal.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, I don't know. I think it's the responsibility thing. I think I'm on the similar page where I could just do whatever and it didn't really, really matter. And then now it does. If I don't do the washing up.
I think we're all kids at heart, though. We can still have fun.
It's true. Oh, yeah. No, you're absolutely right there. I definitely can enjoy life.
I'm going to go and climb a tree tomorrow now.
Do it.
Just because I can.
Might be a bit cold, but do it.
Yeah, true. But they say excellent use of free will, isn't it? Where you just... So I'm just going to go and do it.
Fair. So for my first kind of, I guess, serious question for you, how did you get into music production in the first place? How did you find yourself in this weird world?
Well, it started off when I first started playing in bands. We used to rehearse in our old sixth form common room. And we used to just set up all the equipment we could, all the microphones that we could find, lights and everything, run it through a mixing desk, and then I discovered, there's an output on this mixing desk, so I'd record from there onto, at the time it was mini disc, so I'd record onto just a multi-track onto the mini disc player, and it kind of went from there really. I went into sixth form and I never really knew what I wanted to do. You know, I'd flip from thing to thing, and my parents just wanted me to like go to uni and do something like just get a degree and become successful, you know. They didn't really care what as long as I was happy. And I happened to just flick through a prospectus one day and I was like, music production, or music systems engineering was the degree I saw. I never even knew you could do anything like that, you know. There wasn't the facilities where I went to sixth form to record. So I was like, yep, I'll do that then. And went to uni, did 3 years at Bristol UE, studying music systems engineering, which was, I'd say, more engineering than actually any recording. Well, there was recording stuff, but it was a lot of engineering, mathematics and computer science sort of stuff along with it, which is cool. But not a lot of studio time because there's so many people competing for the facilities. So I left uni and just had to get a job. So I got any old office job, started a band again, and just did the band thing for years, tried to make it And on the side was always doing the demos, and then we go to the studio and record them properly. But I was always doing the demos and the main songwriter and stuff. So it's kind of from early beginnings being in a band. I guess it's a fairly similar story for a lot of people who are into music production. And eventually kind of graduated to recording other people's bands. I was recording mates' bands on the weekend. Carried it on from there. I used to use that money to buy more gear, build my little home setup up. And I went full time with it actually during COVID because I lost my job. I was like, I kind of took over the main sort of childcare duties because my wife carried on working. So I took over. My daughter was only 1 at the time. And so on the side, I was doing bits and pieces remotely and managed to carry it on up until now, which is cool. Don't want to go back to a normal job if I can help it.
No, nobody's called you out yet. 5 years in.
Not yet.
That's good. I mean, that's it. The further away I get from COVID, the more I go, that was a weird time.
So weird. So weird. Like some good stuff kind of came out of a very bad situation for me. Obviously for a lot of other people it was a horrific situation. Me, like I was working a sales job before that. I was earning good money, company car. It wasn't until I was out of that job I realized how much I disliked it and how much it affected me physically, mentally. The stress that I'd have, the pain in my neck and shoulder. I don't get that anymore. Even editing the worst drums in the world does not give me the same level of stress that I used to get working that job. And so, having that whole situation, that realization during COVID, changed my life for the better. I was fortunate enough to have that, and extra time with my daughter that I would otherwise not have got. But yeah, weird when you think back to it now, standing 2 meters away from everyone, and it's just bizarre.
It is. I mean, I'm assuming in the kind of early days of your full-time work with this, you were very much doing home recorded stuff just because of the nature of where we were at.
Yeah, it was all remote, pretty much, and then eventually. Yeah, we started opening bits and pieces up, and there's a studio near here where when I'm recording, I work out of, which is called Orchard Recording Studios, near Glastonbury. So when that opened up, we could kind of get bands in, and people were just itching to do something because we'd been cooped up, and the bands were like, "Oh, we just want to go and play." So we kind of had a bit of a rush going into the studio. But yeah, weird times, strange times.
Yeah. Yeah, it really was. Yeah. So, I mean, was there a kind of a moment, I don't know if it was on a particular production or something, where it all kind of clicked and you went, actually, I'm not terrible at this. This could work.
Yeah, I think if I think back, I did a band. They're called Twin City now, but back in the day they were called Zephyr, and I managed to blag my way into recording them, and they were one of the first bands that I did who I didn't really know, and I met up with the guys and I chatted, and they were like, yeah, cool, we'll work with you. And I did some stuff with them, and I was like, oh, this is quite cool. this is quite good. And then obviously you go through peaks and troughs of doubting your abilities and thinking you're the worst mixer in the world, but there's that, you're always striving to do better. But yeah, I think it was those guys.
Oh, nice. I'll have to check them out, definitely. I mean, how do you deal with self-doubt in moments like that? Because I know, like, musicians, anyone listening will definitely have moments of feeling exactly the same thing about what they're doing. So how do you handle moments like that?
Do you know what? Probably not very well. I tend to bottle things up. I think, like a lot of people. Generalization, but I'm speaking to some friends. A lot of guys tend to bottle things up. We're not the best at talking to people, so I try and be more open now. Like with my wife, if I'm in a really, she's like, "What's wrong?" I'm like, "Oh, I can't get this mix right. I feel really bad." Because you're always, as a mixer, you're always comparing yourself to the top level guys, when the reality is, I'm not working in a multi-million-pound studio with the best artists in the world who've recorded in the best studios in the world on the best gear with I'm doing it here, and I'm working with people of a similar background to myself. So comparing yourself to like CLA and Zach Savini, it's not fair on you as a person. I have to just go away from it, take a break, and just come back to it the next day. The self-doubt, I don't think it ever really goes. I remember listening to a podcast with Sam Guyana. I don't know if that's how I pronounce his surname. I always get it wrong.
It's an American surname.
But he said, Canadian, I think. Is he Canadian? I think he might be Canadian. Anyway, he said that, even now he still gets this self-doubt, and he'll sometimes open up a mix and go, I mean, he may not do this anymore, but back when I heard the podcast, he says something along the lines of, what the hell do I do now? How do I start this song? And sometimes I get that. I'll open up a session, there'll be 200 tracks, and I'm like, where the hell do I start with this? But you start chipping away, and eventually it starts to come together. So yeah, I think taking a break from stuff and just changing the environment, getting out of the studio, going for a walk, climbing a tree.
Do you know, it's so reassuring to hear that other people have exactly the same conversations as me. I'll go to my wife and go, this mix is not working. I can't do this. I'm terrible. I need to quit. And she'll be like, just take a moment, and then come back usually the next day and go, oh, actually, this is, oh, it's not bad.
It's that perspective thing, isn't it? You can just get so engrossed in what you're doing that you lose perspective. And I think that's something that, I mean, now obviously a lot of bands themselves have the ability to record and mix at home. The problem with that is they don't have the outside perspective of a producer and a mixer. And I find with a lot of the bands that I work with that are recording themselves at home, they value my opinion and thoughts and feedback on it, because they've been sat in this little loop, this cycle for so long. And then I can come in and go, oh, have you thought about this? Or have you maybe tried doing XYZ? And they're like, oh no. And they may not take that idea exactly, but it may spark another idea that they wouldn't have thought of. And all of a sudden, that song that they maybe thought was done, or they maybe weren't happy with, or something, just transforms a little bit. So perspective's key, yeah.
Absolutely. I think it's one of those things where you're right, that any band could go in and record and mix themselves, and many do it successfully, but it's the mixture of perspective and I think experience as well, actually, isn't it, where you go to someone who's worked with either your genre a lot or worked with a lot of genres and can come up with sometimes slightly left of field ideas that can be really helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing with music is there's no right or wrong way. It's all objective to whatever one person prefers or not. And if I'm doing a mix for a band, when I start it off, I'll get to maybe where I think it's maybe 80% done, because there's the 80-20 rule where you get 80% of the work done in 20% of the time, and 20%, it kind of works like that. So where I think, right, this is sounding solid now, before I go in and do a million automation moves and tweak just tiny minuscule details that probably most people won't hear, but that's what happens. I'll send it to the band and just be like, look guys, what do you think of this? Are the drums sounding right? Is this the balance okay? Give me some big picture feedback, and that takes it out of my zone of perspective, and the band might then come back and say, oh, actually we want to change the vibe of this, we want a bit more reverb on the vocal, da 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 da. And then I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, oh, actually this. So yeah, collaboration, perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, how would you, this is maybe a contentious question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. How would you describe your sound? Do you have a sound?
I used to think that I didn't, but I think I kind of do. But I have this kind of, it's a bit more of a modern edge to it, a bit of a polish, but it's not overly processed. Like I've tried to do the genre, like it's more the really heavy stuff where everything is super polished and triggered and crystal clear and da-da-da. I just can't quite do it. There's always there's always an element of I like an element of realism, like it's a band playing it. I prefer that over a sound of, I can tell this is just all programmed drums, program bass, da 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 da, and I don't do that very well. So I guess it's polished but realistic.
Organic, maybe that's the word you're looking for.
Yeah, organic. That's the better word. Yeah, I'm terrible with the word. Polished but organic. So yeah, and conversely, like if someone came to me and wanted this like garage punk, super raw, rough mix, I couldn't do it because it to my ears it just doesn't sound right. I'd want to polish it up a bit, you know. Yeah, I think that kind of describes how I would approach a mix anyway, and how I think I approach a mix.
I think it's one of those things that when to any band who's speaking to a mixing engineer or a producer or anyone like that, when you're chatting to them and you go, you know, this is my vision for my music, whatever it may be, that certain producer, engineer, whoever will be able to work in a certain style or a few certain styles that they're comfortable with. And it almost sounds silly, but you know they're a good engineer if they turn around and say, I can't do that, but maybe I know someone who does.
Absolutely. I think there are fundamentals, obviously, that cover everything. And I think in a recording environment, you can probably do a bit more of a broader scope of artists and genres, because it's just basic recording engineering, setting up microphones, But when it comes to mixing it and putting it all together, like I did a band a few years back, and they were kind of very eclectic, folky, spoken word, kind of really vibey, and it was great in the studio. Really cool project to work on. Really interesting stuff. They asked me about mixing it, and I was like, guys, I'm not your man. I'd love to do it, but I'm not your man. So I put, do you know Elliot Glynn?
Well, the name rings a bell.
Yeah, he's big on Instagram. Great guy. So I said, look, go and speak to Elliot. He's your man. And he mixed it, and it sounded great.
Solid. I mean, when you mention recording and stuff like that, would you see yourself more as a mixing engineer who records or a recording engineer who mixes, or would you just take that out of the equation and go, I'm a producer?
Yeah, I guess I'd just be somewhere in the middle, like a producer. When I get tracks to mix, depending on the band, I will kind of always ask them, I'll be like, look, if I get an idea when I'm mixing this, do you mind me just doing some stuff with it? Or they might send me the demo before they kind of finish up recording it, and they'll ask for my feedback on it. So yeah, I guess I'd be somewhere in the middle, I think, because I do get, it's just ideas that we all have. If someone sends me a song to mix and they don't want me to do anything creative on it, I find that harder. I'd much be able to kind of do a bit more funky stuff, you know, chuck some synths in, or risers, or creative delay. It's just putting your own little flair on it. And if I do it and the band hate it, you know, obviously I'll take it out. I'll take it out, but I will have the conversation beforehand and say, look, if I get some ideas, and generally people are like, yeah, cool, do it. So yeah, I think in the middle.
I mean, have you ever mixed a song or kind of, I don't know, added some bits to a song where you've gone, that is brilliant, it is just amazing, and the band have just gone, no?
Probably. Probably. I can't think of a specific example. I do remember doing a song for the guys, the band called Blockade, great guys. Shout out to Jack, he's a guitarist who I talk to quite a lot. And I think I'd recently got some new sound, like risers and 808s and things. And I sent them the mix back, and he's like, do you think there's maybe too many risers in this song? It's like every single section. I was like, yeah, fair point, there probably is, so I'll take a few of them out.
That's the issue, isn't it, when you get a new toy and you're like, oh, let's use it, and then you overuse it.
Yeah, oh, this is cool, into every single section. But hey, that's what revisions are for, right? And feedback. So.
Iron out the problems that you've introduced.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, I mean, when it comes to recording again, what do you think bands should do to prepare better for the studio? Is there a kind of a good set of things that you recommend to people, or?
Yeah, I think when it comes to going in the studio, I mean, I do try and give the bands a bit of a prep talk before. Like, I'll send a prep sheet over and just say, you know, you should be doing X, Y, Z. I'll get them to demo out the tracks beforehand. I wouldn't ever want to go in the studio, produce a band where I haven't heard the demo. You know, because these days we're working with limited budgets, limited time, so you've got to make the most of every single second. So I think, yeah, obviously making sure you know your parts. Not so much now with the bands that I work with, but when I was working with, like starting out, you would get bands come in who didn't know their parts, and you're just trying to sat and work stuff out, and you think, oh, you were playing that, oh, I've been playing this, and then you have to. That luckily now, but it doesn't tend to happen. But stuff like if you've got songs with tempo changes and stuff in, having it all mapped out before we go into the studio, I try and get bands to pre-record guide tracks and stuff and send me the stems so that, when we're recording drums, we're recording to the guide. We're not having to spend, 20 minutes, we've got to track some guides now so we can do the drums too. Because, like I said, the budgets aren't there. We've got to make the most of our time. So being prepared in that sense and shaving off every second and minute that we can to get the most out of the day is really what it is, I think.
Totally. So you're someone who would go in for recording the drums first? Because I remember a few years ago I interviewed Sam Bloor.
Yep.
Everyone seems to know Sam. I interviewed him for the podcast, and he was saying that, at least at the time, I don't know if he still does, he was starting to do more and more drums last, and he was doing programmed drums and doing everything else to the programmed drums, doing the drums afterwards.
I've done it both ways, and it depends on the genre, I think. If it's got to be very tight and not be a little bit more organic sounding, then because you're tracking to the programmed drums, you're tracking to it tight. If I am tracking drums first, generally I will try and do a quick edit in the studio so that we're not tracking to stuff that's a bit wonky. But I don't know, I feel like I prefer doing drums first, but the problem is, raw drums, they don't always sound as good as like a fully mixed MIDI kit, so you can kind of track to that and get a vibe. So I think it works both ways. Depends what the band, who the band are and what they want to do. I've done both. It doesn't faze me doing either way.
I mean, I've often thought it's one of the biggest kind of lies of rock production is drums. Like, they just do not sound like actual drums sound at all. No. And so much of it's on the player and the room, but even so, you track it, and it's very different. You've got to do a lot to drums to make them sound like a modern drum sound that everyone recognizes. Absolutely right. Yeah, if you want to do 50s drums, then you're there. But
yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. So, I mean, how do you handle I don't know how to put this, difficult kind of artist relationships in the studio? Because obviously everyone's in the studio and it can get sometimes a bit kind of intense and everyone's together. So have you worked out ways to kind of deal with moments like that?
Luckily I haven't really had that many, which is good. I think it depends what the disagreement is. Like, if it's on parts and playing stuff, I'll be like, look, well, let's just try it. Let's just try it this way, try it that way, and then make a decision on it. It doesn't matter. Like we said earlier on, there's no right or wrong answer. It's just people's opinions. If it's something else and it goes further and there's a relationship kind of thing, breakdown, then I don't know. I guess I've learned a lot from parenting, where you got to gentle parent people.
I think you're right.
Yeah, I think I like, in the studio, I like to keep it fairly chill and relaxed. Like the orchard where I work out of, we've got some nice big windows, so there's lots of light in there. Got the Xbox and games console and stuff. So I try to keep it chill and a nice relaxed atmosphere, which I think helps in terms of keeping everyone on the straight and narrow for the whole session.
yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, I think it's in my kind of experience, it's about knowing when to take a break and go, let's just pause the music for a minute, go and make a coffee or whatever, and then we can come back to it, which can be super helpful.
I don't know about you, but I try and, if we're doing obviously multiple songs over multiple days, I'll try and rotate people. So I used to be like, right, we'll do all the drums, all the guitars, all the bass, all the vocals. And that's just pretty intense. Whereas if you keep people fresh and on their toes and be like, right, we're going to do one song now, we'll focus on this. We're going to do the guitars, bass, we'll get a bit of vocals in. Then we'll move on to the next song. And it keeps everyone fresh and no one gets bored. And it keeps me on my toes as well. You know, there's nothing. I hate tracking guitars, man. I don't know about you. It's the worst thing. That fatiguing upper mid-range next to the click track, checking the tuning every 5 minutes. Hate it.
Luckily for me, I don't have to record many guitars. I often get asked to record like drums and things, and then the bands go away and record their own guitars, which is fine by me.
I do more of that as well now, actually. A lot of people come for the drums and do the rest themselves, which I'm happy with. But yeah, then you've got to just take a break and step away and refresh my ears and refresh my brain. Because, yeah, those guitars, man, they're the worst.
Maybe you just need to track more mellow jazz and then you'll be all right.
True, yeah. But I love heavy guitars, so what can you do?
There is that, but you love them when they've been recorded.
When they've been recorded, yeah. Not over and over again for 3 hours stints.
So, I mean, what have you picked up any like unexpected skills along the way that someone, if you were talking to someone, they'd be like, oh, you can, I don't know, you can do that?
I would say what I have picked up is probably not necessarily audio skills, but in terms of organization and like I'm big on, I use Keyboard Maestro. Do you know Keyboard Maestro?
I know of it.
Okay, so I go back to, I mentioned him earlier, but Elliot Glynn, a couple of years ago, I saw something on his Instagram and he had a little Stream Deck and he pressed the button and it did something on his Mac and I was like, what's that? He's like, it's my Stream Deck and I'm triggering Keyboard Maestro, and it does stuff on my Mac. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. And I looked into it. And now I basically, anything that takes me, any little task where you're doing several mouse clicks or button presses or key commands, I try and build into a macro. So it just saving me time and saving me clicks. And now my Keyboard Maestro library is huge. And my Stream Deck is packed with all these things. So my drum editing process has gotten so much quicker because the budgets that I'm working with aren't massive. So I don't really have the option to outsource stuff like drum editing. So the only way to make better, cost per hour is by getting quicker at it. And so the Stream Deck, the Keyboard Maestro stuff for me has just sped up my workflow no end. And what I've done, I've got a little sort of AI project where I've put the Logic Pro manual and the Keyboard Maestro manual in the context. So when I want to do something, I ask the AI and it searches it and then it gives me a solution. And you can even download the Keyboard Maestro macros and import them directly. And it doesn't, I mean, it's not perfect, but it gets 80% of the way there and then it's tweaking it. So yeah, I think that's what I have picked up, that organization stuff. And I try and make it as easy as I can for the band. So when I'm setting them up, they have their own log. They've got their own portal login with me so they can go in and access their mixes. And I try and be as organized as I can. I think I've brought some of that over from when I was doing the kind of corporate job before and, having to file things in a certain way and recall stuff and archive and da-da-da. Whereas I think sometimes it can be thought of as some audio engineers can be a bit kind of not lazy, that's not disorganized. Oh, sent me the wrong files. This isn't named right and da-da-da. And I've emailed and he hasn't got back to me and blah, 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 blah. So I just try and be on the button with everything and streamline everything. And it's all done, then I can focus on the creative tasks and and get it out of my brain and not have to try and remember. And reminders on my phone, I'm forever just going, hey Siri, set a reminder for da-da-da-da-da. And then I'm done. I don't have to remember it. It just comes up on my phone or on my watch and it's always there. So yeah, I think that's what, rather than anything particularly audio skill related, it's just upped my organizational skills and streamlined my workflow.
Is that kind of, I'm not going to call it boring stuff, essential stuff, I'm going to put it that way, that means that you can spend more time doing what you love, which is practical thoughts about music, i.e. recording and mixing and stuff like that. But then it also means that you can get that better experience for people you're working with, can't you? You can respond effectively, you can do the practical tasks kind of very quickly and stuff like that. So it's always very helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. And getting things done quickly is what everyone wants to a good standard as well, to a good standard. So if I can get it done quicker and not sacrifice the quality, then yeah, because even if I'm only saving 3 seconds by pressing a button on my Stream Deck rather than doing multiple clicks, 3 seconds over the course of a year, over how many projects, it could add up to, an hour, which gives me an hour to go and spend with my daughter,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm about a year ago, I switched over to Reaper. I'm one of those people. Yeah, and the thing about Reaper is it's massively customizable. And I watched a load of videos and I sat there for ages and went, right, what annoys me about what I'm doing that I could just do automatically, and then kind of made notes and started to do things. And every time something comes up, I immediately start to think, like, right, can that be automated? And it's that kind of thought process that it's very similar to you in that way.
Yeah, absolutely the same thing. Yeah, which is why I don't want to update my Logic on my Mac, because it would just change my workflow too much. So it is as it is. Everything works most of the time, touch wood.
You're going to have to at some point.
I know, but until they force me, it's not going to happen.
Fair enough. Are you on an old OS then?
What am I on?
I mean, I'm a PC guy, so it's all a bit alien to me, but I know of it. I know of the architecture.
Mac Monterey, whatever that is.
Oh, it is old, I think. If it works, it works. That's what matters.
It still works for me. It still works. The last time I did a big update on Logic, I ended up having to pay Waves a couple £100 to update my plugins.
Yes. Let's not talk about Waves right now. Not my favourite.
So yeah.
Trying to move away from them, but I can't. There's a few plugins that I love too much. Sorry, anyone listening, this is way too nerdy, but Shep's Omnichannel, have you tried that one?
I've got it, yeah.
It's such a good plugin. I love it.
Yeah, there are a few Waves ones that I still think that the Waves 1176s are the best 1176 plugins. They sound better to me than the UA stuff. Stuff like RVox as well. It's just great. So yeah, I don't want to pay them again for the stuff that I already own.
You will one day.
Yeah.
So moving away from the nerdy to the practical, let's put it that way. What in your opinion makes a great producer-artist relationship?
I think it's being able to be on the same level as the artist. So being adaptable in yourself. You've got to be able to communicate with them in the right way. I think sense of humor helps as well, because if I get a band come in and they're very serious and they're really like deep and emotional and stuff, it's no good me being really happy and jokey, and it's just going to kill the vibe. So you need to be able to adapt, and yeah, be able to have the right conversations and stuff. I think being a parent has definitely helped me in that respect, because you kind of have to switch from adult mode to like dad mode to things. So, communication as well is a real big one. So if I've got a stacked schedule, and I've got bands waiting on mixes, I'll try and at least get to the end of the week and I'll be like, look, here's where I'm with yours. I haven't started it yet. Or, it's going to be a couple of days out, so at least they know what I'm doing, and know where I am, rather than just going radio silent. So I think, yeah, communication, being able to talk on their level, being open to criticism and different ideas and stuff as well. I'm not the kind of person who's like, it's my way or nothing. These are the guitar tones we're using. This is the drum sound we're going to get. I'm very collaborative in that sense. Like, I'll send everyone a spec, like a form, before we work together. Whether we've worked together before or not, I want their feedback on kind of where they are sonically and emotionally or whatever, so that when we're going into the mix or the record, I've got a frame of reference. I'll get them to do like a little Spotify playlist of reference tracks, or what drum tones are you going for? What guitar tones do you like? Because I'm happy to do whatever as long as it suits the right vibe for the artist. It doesn't have to be exactly what I say.
Totally. It's that kind of collaboration. Let's go with that word. That really makes it, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes, again, when it comes to revisions and stuff on a mix, I mean, I'll get bands who they're like apologizing for asking for revisions. I'm like, it's part of the job, you know. And I was the same when I was in a band, and I'd email the mixer and I'd be like, I'm really sorry, but can you just tweak this one thing? He's like, yeah, man, it's fine. It is what it is. It's your song. I'm like here to facilitate your art. So if you want to do it that way, you know, I might have an opinion on it, and I might tell you why maybe you might want to reconsider, or we might want to do it a different way. But at the end of the day, it's the artist's vision and their art, and that's what you want to serve. So collaboration is key.
I've said exactly that kind of thing so many times to bands. Like, it's your music, it's not my music, so your opinion is essential here.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I mean, how do you give, this is maybe more a studio question than a mixing question, but how do you give effective feedback to musicians?
I just think I'm honest with it. So if I don't like something, I'll give a reason why. I won't just say that's bad. I'll give a reason why. And I think the difficulty, if we go back to an earlier question where you have kind of maybe disagreements in the studio, the difficulty comes where somebody goes, I don't like that. And then you go, well, what's the alternative? What do you like? I don't know. That isn't a constructive approach to it for me. It could be that we just need to jam something out, or I don't know, I'll be like, look, just play something, and then we might pick a little, oh, what's this little section? Oh, maybe we can build off that. But I think just being able to give honest feedback in the right way as well. So depending on the band and who they are, you can approach conversations in a different way. Some people, you can approach it in a jokey way and make it funny and humorous, whereas others, you've got to be a bit more kind of gentle. And again, funny the things you learn from parenting, but you know, like making people think that they've come up with the idea and not yourself is a much easier way of kind of getting to the end result, you know. Not that I'm using psychology tricks on people all the time, but yeah, it's lots of things like that, I think, really.
I think the conclusion of this conversation so far is that if you want to be a more effective producer, or if you want to be a more effective kind of member of a band, and you want to relate to people and stuff, then maybe the best thing to do is become a parent.
Yeah, although maybe the sleep sacrifice maybe isn't such a good trade-off, but it teaches you a lot. Yeah, it teaches you a lot. I think the psychology behind music and relationships plays a bigger part in everything than you would think. It's not something I ever thought of, like when I first started doing it, but now it is definitely something that I think is important. Absolutely.
So to ask you maybe the ultimate psychological question for someone who's mixing, and this is a question I regularly wonder: how do you know, or when do you know that a mix is done? And so I know you said about the 80% and getting that bit done, but then you've moved on to the next bit. How do you know it's done?
Is it ever done? Is a mix ever done? Because I always listen back to my old mixes and like, I wish I'd done this differently. A mix is never done. It's just abandoned. So no, I think I kind of get to a point with it where you start just tweaking little things, silly little things, and second guessing. And I just be like, when I start getting to that point, I think, right, do you know what? I'm going to send it to the band and see what they think. And I'll send it to the band and they'll come back, and I'll take a break from it and I won't listen to it for a day. And then you come back to it with fresh ears, and you're either thinking, oh, actually, this is in a good place, or generally, when I'm at that point where I feel like I'm tweaking something and it's maybe around finished, I'll send it to the band. Most of the time when I come back to it, anything that I want to do is really minor. And at some point, you know, when you're doing this as a job and you've got other projects and other things going on, you can't tweak it forever. It's got to be done. You've got to move on to the next thing. So yeah, I think you've just got to accept it, move on.
Trust.
Yeah, trust it. And if the band are happy, then, you know, that's the main thing.
Exactly. Yeah, you're right. I mean, it's funny, but you're saying about kind of going away and coming back to it. I've often found that if I'm mixing when I'm tired, then, which I know is maybe a challenging thing when you're a parent, but when you're too tired, you come back to it the next day and you go, no, what was my brain doing? This is awful.
You lose that. Yeah, you lose all that perspective, and that ear tiredness, that fatiguing that you get from tracking guitars for hours. The only way to get your hearing back to, or your mind, I don't know, you know, whatever it may be, is to just not listen to something and come back to it with a fresh mindset. And it's amazing what that can do. So when I get to that frustrated point, I'm like, I'm only going to make it worse. I've got to go away and come back to it. And it's amazing the amount of times, you know, maybe I'm not talking about finishing mixes here, but when I'm in the weeds with something and I'm struggling, that you'll come back to it and listen to it and be like, oh yeah, this is what I need to do. Straight away, that it just pops out, whereas you can't see it when you're just too far gone in it, you know.
And it's usually something quite minor, I've found. Like, well, this very specific thing needs to change in a very specific way, and then boom. Yeah. So how do you see, this is maybe I don't know, I'm not sure how I'd answer this question necessarily, but I'm going to ask it anyway and see where we go. How do you see the future of music production evolving? Good question.
I think, do you know what? I think it's going to go one of two ways. Obviously, the big topic at the moment is AI. And I think, as with everything, there's, well, most things, a lot of things, there's good and there's bad. I use AI tools, but I kind of use it as more of a supercharged Google. You know, I'm not using it to generate images or anything like that. But some people are generating AI music, and I've heard it quite a lot. Like, I'll go on playlists now, and it's just tucked away, and I'm like, that doesn't quite sound right. And then you go on the profile, and it's all, you can just tell, and they've got no social media presence. I think you're gonna get people who are gonna go down that route, obviously, and generate rubbish, and put it out there. And some people aren't going to care, but I think you're going to have a core of people who are going to care. So you're going to have them go the other way. And like, obviously, when you had stuff like MIDI drums coming through and the programmed drums and thinking, this is going to kill it. Well, it's a tool to do some things, but people love playing drums. People love creating music and being in a room. So I think you're just going to get people just completely the other way and avoid it, AI stuff at all costs. And there are always going to be people who just want to get in a room and play music with their mates because that's fun and that's their release. Technology is always evolving. There's always going to be something new on the horizon. But for me, music is about emotion and feeling. And if I hear a song, it takes me back to a certain place and time and what I was doing, and I have a connection with that band or that song or that artist, which you don't get through a computer. So yeah, if that makes any sense as to where music is going, I think you're just going to have a real renaissance of real music as well at the same time as all this slop.
I think you're right. I think there will be that kind of, I don't know, AI side of things that I don't think we're going to be able to get rid of, and that's what it is. But I think a lot more and more people are going to be looking for something real, and so we're going to move. I think I don't know. I've got no one's got a crystal ball here, but I can imagine rock and metal, which is kind of where I'm based, and I know you're based in that kind of world as well, is going to move towards stuff like less programmed drums, more real drums, maybe even less samples, like more real sounding drums, and maybe even like live in the room kind of recordings with the entire band, which is just not something that you can fake in any way, really. So we'll see.
I feel like it's kind of happening as well, because that kind of 2000s vibe that, it's my favourite era of music, was that kind of 2000s rock and emo stuff. There are more bands doing that thing now, and I have bands that come through and be like, look, we want to use minimal samples. We still want it to sound, modern, but we want to have that rawness to it, that cymbal bleed that comes through like you listen back to those. I listen back to stuff from, what was I listening to the other day? A Circa Survive song. I'd never twigged on it before, but every time I could hear the snare go psh, 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 on the snare, and I was like, oh yeah, I never noticed that. But it's a real drum, real performance. So I think people love connection and real emotions, and a sweaty room full of people watching just a bunch of guys jumping around, or girls or whoever on stage jumping around. No one's going to set their laptop up on stage and go, well, not for rock and metal anyway, and press that button and everyone's going to go nuts. It's just not going to happen. And that's not why I listen to music. That's not why many people listen to music. So I think you're right. It's going to become more, there's going to be that want for that realism and that real playing, real drums, real guitars, real everything, rather than ones and zeros.
Absolutely. I think you're absolutely right there. So my final question for you, we've reached this point already. What has been your favourite release that you've worked on? And I'm going to couch this question in saying that if you are a band that Joe has worked with and he doesn't say you, it's not that he hates you, it's not that he doesn't like you, I'm not asking that at all. Answer the question however you like, but I just thought I'd say that first.
Yeah, do you know, it's always the most recent release though, isn't it? I think you're always a fan of the most recent thing. No, I'm fortunate enough that I work with some really cool bands, and I've become friends with, a lot of these bands and these people. I've been lucky enough to work with people from all over the world, and somehow I've got a bit of a foothold in the Albuquerque music scene over in America. There's like 6 or 7 bands from Albuquerque that I've worked with, and people are like, yeah, come over, you can come and visit. So I'd love to one day. I think there's a band from San Diego I work with called Nights Like Thieves. They haven't put anything out for a while, but I love their songs. Like when I first started talking to those guys, and Mario, who's one of the main songwriters, I said to him, I was like, man, I wish I could be in your band, because they just write songs that I love, and I'm lucky enough to be able to mix them and give them production advice and work on them in that way. So I'm going to go with Nights Like Thieves, because they're super cool dudes, and I would love to be in their band.
I'll put a link in the description. I don't know why I'm pointing down. I'm going to put a link in the description box below, and you can go and check them out. And I'll make sure I go through with any bands we talked about, and I'll put in a link as well, so people can go check them out. But yeah, cool. Wow.
We did it. We made it.
Boom, we survived. Joe, thanks for talking.
Thank you so much for having me on, Phil. It's been great chatting to you. Really, really appreciate your time.
So that's it for another episode of the Music Survival Guide. Thank you very much for listening. If you thought it was helpful, please do share it with any friends and bandmates if you want to talk about all things producers and producing. If you have a chance, please do write a review wherever you listen to the podcast. It really does help others to discover the podcast through the algorithm, the all-powerful algorithm. Finally, if you're thinking about recording or mixing, please do drop me a message on the links in the podcast description below. We can have a chat about it. I'll also provide Joe's information there so you can chat to him as well. And I'll see you next time.